competitors that they need to wear clean clothing and make sure that it's not objectionable. Okay, so make sure it's not having any graphics on there that could be offensive. Also, the clothing must be made of material that's non-transparent. So oftentimes when we're out there working out, we get really, really sweaty and things like that. And then the tie might start to stick to you. So you don't want anything that's going to be see-through or transparent that's going to be too revealing. Okay. Also, jewelry is prohibited. The competitors, they need to, like I said, have appropriate athletic footwear and make sure that the proper power and protection is provided for the stability of your feet. And also too, athletes, they are allowed to wear track spikes, but they need to make sure that they are approved spikes, because you want the pyramids, you don't want the needle spikes. So because it can tear up the track. Okay, so we have to be mindful of that. All right, so the diagram here shows a basic 400-meter track. Okay, so here you have a common finish, one right here. Okay, and typically your tracks will have 8 lanes. Some of the really larger tracks and also international tracks may have 9 lanes. Okay, but typically the tracks are 400-meter tracks and they are comprised of 8 lanes. Now, in a minute, I'm going to talk about waterfall. Okay, and so an example of a waterfall would be this little curve over here. Okay, and basically, I'm not going to get ahead of myself. All right. So, but this is your basic 400-meter track. On here, it doesn't show the exchange zones for like a 4 by 100 meters, but we can talk about that. Okay, so here are some of our general rules. So due to the possibility of very low registration numbers, the following events may be combined and run as open divisions. That may be the 800-meter run, the 1500-meter runs, and your 4 by 100 meter relay. This means that what's going to happen is they're going to want to combine both the male and female and all the age groups into the same heats and things like that. Okay, but when it comes to awarding, they will be awarded separately. So even though they may run them or compete them together, okay, they're going to be awarded separately. Okay. Also, our blind and deaf athletes, a rope or veil may be provided to assist athletes who are visually impaired. A tap start may be used for an athlete who is both deaf and blind, and a sighted guide may lead but not pull or prompt the athlete in any manner. With our relays, okay. If an athlete is dropped and no registered athlete is available, the entire relay team is dropped. So I have to reiterate, please, 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 if you have a relay team, make sure you have an alternate, okay? Because if the time and energy that you're putting in the training, the athletes are working and putting the time in, you don't want to get to a competition and you only have 4 athletes and you have an athlete get sick or can't show up, and then they have to withdraw from the competition. Okay, so it's imperative that if you have a relay team, make sure you have an alternate. Okay, the 4 by 400 meters is a 3-turn stagger. Okay, and will be used for the start. So what's going to happen in the 4 by 4 relay when we're talking about the 3-turn stagger? Your first leg, okay, is going to run the entire lane. So say for instance, if your team, okay, if your relay team is in lane 2, that first leg is going to run all the way around in lane 2, okay? And then that first leg is going to hand the baton off to the second leg. The second leg is going to run until he or she gets to that break line. Once they get to the break line, they're going to cut in, okay? And so then they're going to run on the inside, okay? And then they'll pass it out to the third leg and the ankle. The key thing, when they're running, make sure that you tell your athletes, don't run to the outside, because if they're running to the outside, they're running extra distance. So you want them to run it as efficiently as possible.
Hey, Valerie, and just to touch on that, I know a few people are like, well, we don't have a 4 by 400 meter. That has been asked. That's something I'm going to introduce during summer games this year, but there have been a few schools and teams that have asked about 4 by 4 relays. So that will be introduced this year for sure, or offered, I should say.
Awesome sauce. So in the slides that Irving is going to provide for you, there's a video on the 4 by 4 relay. Okay, so I'm just going to move forward. with the starts. Okay, due to time constraints, starting blocks will not be utilized at state summer games. Okay, so we will not use starting blocks. All athletes shall start from behind the start line. A runner completes the race when his or her torso reaches the perpendicular plane of the near edge of the finish line. So imagine the finish line. Okay, so imagine that there is an imaginary plane that goes all the way up. Okay, and so the winner of the race will be the first one whose torso, okay, crosses that imaginary plane. All right. And so, oh, one thing I want to emphasize on that. So when your athletes are running, okay, a lot of times it's been told, oh, have your athletes lean, have your athletes run through the tape, okay? Because if you have them to lean, some of them will start their lean too soon, and then that's going to cause them to break form. Okay, so have them to run through the finish line. Okay, now if they're really close to someone else, okay, as you're crossing, yes, you can lean, but don't start your lean way before the finish line. Okay. In the competition, the commands of the starter shall be on your marks, set, and when all competitors are set, the gun shall be fired. And so that command, that is for your sprints. Okay, so like your 100 meters, your 200 meters, your 4x1 relay, okay? So basically, if you're using blocks, it's that 3 commands start, okay? So on the marks, set, and then the starter will fire the pistol. And I would encourage you is to get your athletes acclimated with hearing the fire pistol, because you don't want them to get to summer games, or even if they're going to nationals and they're startled because they're not used to hearing the sergeant pistol. So make sure you try to get them acclimated with that. In races 800 meters or longer, the command shall be on your mark, and then the starters want to make sure that everyone has come to a set point, and then they're going to fire. Okay, so just be mindful that in the 800 and up, okay, it is a standing start. Okay, they cannot get down and touch the ground. Okay, in those races that are 800 meters and above. So with the 1, 2, 4, if your athletes wants to get down, okay, get down on the 3 point, 4 points start, they can do that, okay, but not in the 800 meter or above. Okay. And here it demonstrates the start. All right. So with the 800 meter distance, the athlete will run or walk in the lanes through the first turn and break toward the lane 1 at the break line. Okay. And so typically where they have the break line, they will also typically have like little orange flat cones to identify where the break line is. Okay. The 1500 meter and greater distance, a waterfall start shall be used. And what they mean by a waterfall start is typically in like the 1500 meters or greater, but also 800 sometimes. If you have 8 or more athletes, what they're going to do is they're going to put all the athletes in that heat. Okay. And what they'll do is there is a line on track that kind of looks like a curve, and they'll line them up behind that. Okay. And so what they'll do is they'll fire, and then they'll try to safely get out. Okay. All right. The starter shall give each competitor a chance to do his or her best by giving the competitors ample time to settle down after taking their mark. Starting the sequence over if the runner is off balance, not holding the runners too long after the set command. And that's really important too. The starter has to not hold the athletes too long, okay, in the set position. False starts, only 1 false start per race shall be allowed without the disqualification of the athlete responsible for the false start. So basically what they're saying is that if there's a false start, the first one may be charged to the field, okay? And then we'll say for instance the second one, okay, if the athlete commits that, then that next one, that athlete will get disqualified. And then here's a video about the waterfall stuff. I apologize that I'm not showing the videos right now. I have some technical difficulties with the videos, but once you Urban send you the PowerPoint, you'll be able to access that. Okay. Lane violations. In all races ran walking lanes, each competitor shall keep within his allotted lane from start to finish. If a competitor is pushed or forced by another person to run outside his lane, And if no material advantage is gained, the competitor should not be disqualified. Okay. So, and if an athlete either moves outside his or her lane in the straight or moves outside the outer lane in his outside the outer lane of his lane on the bend, okay, on the curve, okay, with no material advantage thereby being gained, and no other runner is obstructed, then the competitor shall not be disqualified. So basically, if there is no advantage gained, and or if the athlete did not impede the progress of another runner, okay, then disqualification won't occur. Okay. And this video shows an apparent lane violation. Okay, now we're moving on to walking events. With the walking events, it's important that athletes must have one foot in touch with the ground at all times. Okay, in all race walking events, an athlete does not have to have a straight advancing leg while competing. So the key thing to remember is that you have to have one foot in contact with the ground at all times. In race walking events up to and including the 400 meters, the competitor shall be disqualified with no prior warning. In the opinion of two or more officials, the technical violation has been committed that results in an advantage being gained. Okay, so if their race walking look like they're starting a jog, okay, they can come up and say, hey, and if two or more officials agree on it. Due to the possibility of very low registration numbers, the following events may be combined and run as open divisions. The 800-meter walk, and this means combining males and females, all age groups, and athletes will be awarded separately. So they may have a race walk that have both male and females in varying age groups competing together. With the developmental walking, okay, you have your assisted walk. And so athletes, they must provide their own assisted devices. Assisted devices, they may consist of canes, crutches, or a walker. The athletes, they start behind the start line with a walking aid and walks using a walking aid. The athlete stays in his or her designated lane. The athlete may not receive physical assistance from the coaches, from the officials, or any other volunteer. Okay, so the athlete then is timed from the smoke of the starter's gun, okay, to when his or her torso reaches the perpendicular plane of the near edge of the finish line. Okay. So we're looking for that smoke when the fire pistols, the starter's pistol go off, and the smoke, you see the smoke, that's when the time starts. And it ends when the participant crosses the inside edge of that finish line, the torso. Okay. With unassisted walk, the rules are the same as the unassisted walk, but the athlete will not be permitted to use a walking aid. With our wheelchair events. Okay, these are some general rules for our wheelchair events. The athletes shall start with all wheels behind the start line. The athlete is timed from the smoke of the starter's gun to when all front wheels, whether it's two or one of the wheelchair, reach the perpendicular plane of the near edge of the finish line. The lanes for the wheelchair event shall be made 2 track lanes wide. So basically, you may have an individual that is in line 1 and 2. Okay, then you have another individual that may be in lanes 3 and 4, and you may have another athlete that may be in lanes 5 and 6. So each athlete is taking up 2 lanes. Okay, the width of 2 lanes. The motorized wheelchair should not be allowed in regular wheelchair races. Only athletes who emulate by use of wheelchair may participate in the events. Okay. So, Irvin, do you want to expound on that?
Sorry, where were we?
No, I was saying, do you want to expound on that? So basically what they're saying is that the athlete has to be in the wheelchair all the time to be able to participate, right? Or is it saying that if you have an athlete that uses a wheelchair part of the time? So that's what my question is.
Yes. So athletes, really it boils down to athletes that are in the wheelchair must compete in the wheelchair. But if they're, of course, if they're in the motorized, they can't compete in a regular wheelchair race. But a lot of the time we are pretty lenient on that situation. We may have an athlete that that is able to get out, but they just can't do a walking event. So like they might stand up to do the shot put or, softball throw or something of that nature, but they're unable to walk that far of a distance, whether it's the 25-meter. So we're pretty lenient when it comes to, being in the wheelchair, but definitely if they are able to, we want to push them as much as possible. So if they are able to walk, we definitely want them to compete in the walking event.
Okay, athletes, they shall not be pushed, pulled, or otherwise assisted during these events for athlete's safety. Okay, and each competitor must keep in his or her lane from the start to finish and may not interfere, obstruct, or impede the progress of another competitor. Infractions at the discretion of the judges may result in disqualification. Okay. So keeping here is safety, 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 safety. Okay, we have our 30-meter slalom. Okay, so with the slalom, beginning at the start line, we're going to place one cone in each lane at 5-meter intervals, and the cone should be placed in the middle of the lanes. The athlete is going to maneuver his or her chair through the course, going to the right of the first obstacle and across the finish line without impeding another athlete in the course. So if an athlete knocks down any of the markers, okay, any of the cones, it constitutes a violation. Okay, and a 3-second penalty will be assessed. Okay. And that video shows the 30 meters wheelchair stall. The motorized wheelchair, these are some rules for the wheelchair race, motorized wheelchair race. These events, they're restricted to motorized wheelchairs only. The first 2 wheels on each competitor's wheelchair will be regarded as the starting and finishing points of all races. If a competitor varies from a sequence of obstacles, he or she must, without notice from any official, resume progress at the point prior to the incorrectly passed obstacle before entering the next obstacle, okay? And complete the course in its entirety. If they don't complete the course in its entirety, then they will be disqualified. So in essence, failure to complete the course as designed will result in disqualification. A competitor will be disqualified if that individual's coach, okay, or assistants enter the course boundaries during the running of the obstacle course. Okay, so coaches, okay, you can provide instruction from the outside, okay, but if if you go within the course, you're going to cause your athlete to be disqualified, and we don't want that, okay? And so the judges and the officials will not give directional cues. So you as a coach, you can give that instruction from on the outside, okay? But just be mindful that you can't enter the course, enter those boundaries. Athlete, it's time from the smoke of the start is done to when the front wheels of the wheelchair reach the perpendicular plane of the near edge of the finish line. And all motorized wheelchairs shall be set on the high speed setting, okay? On the high speed setting. So make sure that any athletes that participate in the motorized wheelchair, make sure that they are setting it on the high speed, because you don't want your athlete being at a disadvantage because they don't have their setting set on high. We're going to talk about field events. We're going to talk about the jumps right now. Okay. So first event is standing long jump. So the athletes will be called to compete and will have 3 non-consecutive jumps. Okay. I know sometimes when we have our area games, we'll be doing long jump or throws, and you want to go ahead and knock it out and have your athletes do 3 consecutive jumps, but we're doing a disservice to the athletes. So we need to make sure that we do 9 consecutive throws, 3 non-consecutive throws, because number one, that gives that athlete the time to recuperate from each throw, okay? And also two, you as a coach, after you see the first attempt, you may be like, okay, this is something I noticed. Okay, this is something I want you to do in the next jump. So let's make sure that we do non-consecutive jumps. Chaperones will be instructed where to meet the athletes when they have completed the event. Competitors shall start with both feet behind a designated takeoff line and on the ground. Okay, so when starting, the competitor's toes shall be behind the takeoff line. Okay, so if your athlete jumps and they're in front of the line, okay, that can constitute a foul. Okay, I know a lot of times we're more lenient, in our area games, But I want us to make sure that we're preparing them so when they come to summer games, that they are prepared. All right. A competitor shall use both feet on the takeoff. Okay. So if they're doing standing long jump, okay, they can't come off with 1 foot. It has to be off of 2 feet. Okay. He or she may rock backward and forward, lifting his or her heels and toes alternately, but he or she may not lift either foot clear off the ground. So the standing long jump is a 2 foot takeoff. Okay, so remember that. The athlete's best jump will be used for scoring. So all 3 jumps will be measured. Okay, but the attempt with the longest distance is the one that will count for scoring purposes. Okay. And the measurements will be done in meters. In meters. How many times have you had took your measurement down in feet and said, okay, we got to convert this to meters. So make sure that whenever you're entering your information, make sure you're putting in meters and centimeters. All right, 3 running long jump. Okay. In the running long jump, an athlete must be able to jump at least 1 meter, okay, which is the minimum distance between the toe board and the sand pit. Sometimes you may use your school's long jump pit, and it may be greater than a meter. Okay, so in that event, you're going to have to do a makeshift board where you can get some tape and measure it off. Okay. But key thing is you make sure that your athletes are safe. Each competitor shall be allowed 3 non-consecutive jumps. The athlete's best jump will be used for scoring. All 3 jumps shall be measured and recorded for the purpose of breaking ties. All distances will be measured along a perpendicular line from the foul line to the closest impression on the landing area made by any part of the athlete's body or clothing. So basically what that's saying is that you have your takeoff board, okay? So your athlete is running down the runway, okay? And they feel themselves off the takeoff board. Now, the very front of the takeoff board, okay, if any part of their foot exceeds the front of that takeoff board, that constitutes a foul, okay? Now, whenever you're doing your measurement, okay, you're going to do your measurement from the front of the takeoff board that's closest to the sand pit, okay? Now, whenever you take your markings. So say for instance, your athlete, wherever they land at in the sand, if they land and then they fall back, okay, and their hands are closer to the takeoff board, you're going to measure where their hands are. So you're going to measure the closest marking, okay, to the takeoff board. Okay, and the measurements will be taken in centimeters and meters. And prior to competition, an athlete may receive assistance from an official to mark their runway starting point. So it's really important that your athletes get their steps so they have a consistent takeoff point, and that will help with their consistency. With the high jump, and the high jump is only offered in the pentathlon, okay? And any athlete that is participating in the pentathlon, they're not going to be able to participate in other events other than the pentathlon, because the pentathlon is comprised of 5 events. Okay, but the high jump, the minimum opening height for all high jump competitions shall be 1 meter. Competitors shall not dive forward over the bar or take off from the 2-foot takeoff. So during a warm-up, if an athlete deliberately does a forward dive or comes off a 2 feet, the competitor shall be disqualified from the high jump, okay, and receive a participant ribbon. Now, if they do that during the competition, okay, where they do a forward dive or come off of 2 feet, then what's going to happen is that the competitor shall cease competition and be given the proper place from that athlete's last legally cleared height, okay? And if this occurs during the pentathlon, the competitor receives the points for the legally cleared height.
Hey, Valerie.
Yes, sir.
We just had a question that came up, where to measure the jumping from when it comes to, I'm assuming, running long jump, I would say. But The question is, well, she said, I believe our jumping board is farther than Special Olympics uses. So do I measure back from the edge of the pavement area at the sand pit or use the jumping board as is?
What you would do is where the sand pit is, measure a meter from there. Because that way you want to ensure that your athletes are able to get into the pit. Does that answer that question?
Yes, I think it did. I'll wait to see her response. That was from Janet.
Okay, yeah, because I know a lot of the high school runways. It exceeds that 1 meter takeoff. So a lot of times you have to make sure it's correct. And so yeah, you measure it from the sand pit. Measure 1 meter from the sand pit. We good? Okay, so now we're going to talk about throws. Okay, so we have our softball throw. The competitors, they may use any type of throw. All division ages 12 and up shall use the standard size softball. The 8 to 11 age divisions may use a smaller women's slow pitch softball. And each competitor shall be allowed 3 non-consecutive throws. Okay, and the longest measurement of the 3 throws will be used for scoring. And this is going to be a consistent thing throughout all of your field events. 3 non-consecutive throws, whether it's 3 non-consecutive jumps or 3 non-consecutive throws, okay? It's non-consecutive, 3 non-consecutive, okay? The throws will be measured from the inner edge of the arc throwing restraining line, and the measurement of all throws is required for the purpose of breaking ties, okay? So that's why it's important that you take measurements of all 3 throws, okay? Because say for instance, if you have 2 athletes that have their farthest throw is the same length, okay? Then you have to go to that second longest attempt for the tiebreaker. That's why it's important that you report all of the. When measuring the throw, the tape measure must start from the back of the box and extend to the landing point. The measurement is taken from the tape measure process from incepting into the landing point. The throwing area should be set up as follows. I'm going to show you a picture here. Okay, so this is your softball throw. And they were talking about here, like these are the parallel lines right here. Okay. And so whenever you're taking the measurement, okay, it's going to take it through here. Okay. So the measurement is going to be taken inside the arc, throwing the straight line to the point of the ball landing. So the ball will be landing somewhere out here. You're pulling the tape through here. The shot put. Okay, the shot put at state events will be outdoor shot puts. Okay, so they have both indoor and outdoor, but we're going to use outdoor for outdoor. Okay, so the size of the shot used in competition is going to vary based on the division. So with your female athletes, ages 8 to 11, and wheelchair athletes, they'll use the 4.4 pounds. The male athletes, ages 8 to 11, and also your female athletes, ages 12 and up, they'll use the 6.6 pounds. And then your male athletes, ages 12 and up, will use the 8.8 pounds. Okay. And so, and also the use of any mechanical aid will not be allowed in shot put. And for protective purposes only, your athletes, they can take their wrist if need be, to give them that flexibility, that support. Okay. The hand, or as many as 2 adjoining fingers may be taped. There shall be no connecting tape between the fingers and the palm. Fingers in the back of the hand, the wrist in the palm, wrist in the back of the hand, fingers in the wrist, and the front and the back of the hand between the fingers. All right. The shot shall be put from the shoulder with 1 hand only. Okay. So the key word here is put. Okay. It's not a throw. Okay. It's a put. Shot put. Okay. At the time, the competitor takes a stance in the ring to commence a put. The shot shall touch or be in close proximity to the chin, okay? And the hand shall not drop below the position. So they can't bring it, you won't bring it back past the ear, anything like that. Okay, so you're putting it forward. Okay. Okay, the shot must not at any time be brought behind the line of the shoulders and must not be thrown. The competitor must start from a stationary position inside the circle and must exit the back half of the circle upon the completion of the play. So a legal putt shall be made from within the circle, and the athlete or his or her wheelchair may not touch the top edge of the toe board. So if your athlete, okay, their foot top touches the top part of the toe board, that constitutes a foul. Okay. If they step over the toe board, okay, that constitutes a foul. If they if they put the shot and it lands outside of the throwing sector, that constitutes a foul. Okay. If they do not exit the rear of the throwing circle, okay, that constitutes a foul. Okay, so using any method contrary to the definition of a legal putt, so causes of the shot to fall on or outside the lines marking the putting section, wearing an illegal device or taping on the putting arm, wrist, hand, or fingers, and each competitor shall be allowed 3 non-consecutive throws. And the measurement of each throw is required for the purpose of breaking ties. Oh, very, very important. Whenever you are doing your measurements for the shot put, okay, you want to make sure, so the zero end is going to be out in the throwing section in the field, okay? So you're going to pull that tape, okay, through the circle, okay, through the throwing circle. Now, whenever you do your measurement, you're going to measure from that inside arc, okay, the inside of the toe board. But the key thing is make sure that the tape is pulled tight. You don't want it loose, okay? Because if you're measuring one athlete and the tape is kind of loosened, and then the next athlete, you have the tape pulled tight, that's not being consistent in the next, giving the other athlete unfair advantage. The key thing is just being consistent. Okay, we have the mini javelin. Okay. With the mini javelin, the shaft, grip, and fin shall be made out of plastic. The tip shall be made of a soft rubber with a blunt rounded end. The mini javelin consists of 4 ends. The fin shall be flat and shall be perpendicular to the surface of the mini javelin. And so they have basically 2 weights. They have the 300 grams for the men and women ages 8 to 15, and then they have the 300 grams for women, and then for the men, they have the 400. The mini javelin must be held by the grip with one hand only, and the mini javelin shall be thrown over the shoulder or upper part of the arm with one arm. It may be slung or hurled. The athlete will have 3 non-consecutive throws. At no time may the competitor turn completely around so that his or her back is toward the throwing area. It is counted as a foul if the competitor does not use the proper throwing technique. Does not throw the mini javelin so that the point or tip lands before any other part of the implement. And so basically what happens with that is that it lands flat, okay, as opposed to the tip of it hitting the ground. Does not throw the mini javelin so that the point or tip falls completely within the inner edges of the sector line. So it has to stay within the sector. Where the competitor touches with any part of the body arc that's marked or any ground beyond the arc. So basically, if they cross the foul line, it constitutes a foul. Okay. At culminating events, if all competitors in the division are disqualified, the heat will replay. And there's a video here also of how to throw the mini javelin. With the pentathlon. The pentathlon events is comprised of the 100-meter dash, the long jump, the shot put, the high jump, and the 400-meter dash. Okay, it's recommended that the pentathlon is conducted in a 2-day format. So basically, what that means is that on day 1 they will have 100 meters, the long jump, and the shot put. And then on day 2 they will have the high jump and the 400 meters. And with the pentathlon, it's all about accumulating points. So each event, your time is based, represents a score. Okay, so the better you do in your events, the higher your score. Okay. Ball throw for distance, and this is a developmental event. Athletes, they use a tennis ball and throw as far as they can. Athletes, they can use any type of throw. Okay. Athletes, they are allowed 3 non-consecutive throws, and the longest measurement of the 3 throws will be used for scoring. Throws will be measured from the inner edge of the arc, throwing the straining line, and the measurement of all throws is required for the purpose of breaking time. Okay. Taking accurate measurements, and we kind of hit on that a little bit as we were going. With the long jump, all distances will be measured along a perpendicular line from the foul line to the closest impression on the landing area made by any part of the athlete's body or clothing. And that's why it's important also too that we make sure that our athletes are wearing proper clothing and they're not wearing something really, really loose. So say for instance, if they were long jumping and their shorts grazed the sand while they were landing, okay, and it leaves a mark in the sand, and that mark is closest to the takeoff board, that's where they're going to mark it from. So, I mean, little things matter, okay. Also, standing long jump. All distances will be measured along a perpendicular line from the foul line to the closest impression on the landing area made by any part of the athlete's body or clothing. With the shot put, mini jab, and ball throw, all distance will be measured along a perpendicular line from the foul line to point where the ball or shot, mini jab, first makes contact with the ground, not its final position. So you're not going to mark where it's if it hits and then go somewhere else where it makes that initial hit. Not where it comes to rest. Honest efforts. Okay. Make sure your distances and time submitted are reflective of your athlete's actual abilities. We have the 15% rules. So if an athlete competes and are 15% above or below their times, they could be disqualified. And you don't want that. Okay, your athletes, look, they're working so hard. And we're doing a disservice, and this is just me saying this. If we was like, oh, okay, I'm going to put my athlete in this because I know that they're going to win. That's doing a disservice to the athlete because number one, it's not challenging our athlete, okay? And also two, it's not fair to the other athlete. Okay? So let's look. You ever heard the expression cream rises to the top? And our athletes are like that. When we challenge them, they're going to rise to the top, okay? So if there is a change in the athlete's time or distance, be sure you submit that information to Irvin so they can get it changed, okay? And so they said no sandbagging, okay? So look, we're almost. That is it. So thank you. And here's a slide that talks about Special Olympics coaching progression plan. So it has the link to that here. And thank you for joining us today. And this has, let's go back. This has my email, Irvin and Jennifer's email. So if you have any questions.
Sweet. And real fast before everyone jump in, Valerie, thank you so much. That was very informative. I've learned a lot as well. I'm gonna try something real fast that I was messing around with just to make sure everybody's still here. We're going to launch a quick poll. If everybody can see it, it should have popped up on your screen, but just have six quick questions for you. Just want you to answer it. I'm gonna leave it up for a couple of minutes as I speak. So please answer those questions. Just a fun little poll for everybody. But please, if you haven't already, send me an email if you want a copy of the PowerPoint. I can definitely send it to you. I think I've already sent it to a few of you guys, is what I was kind of doing just now. So you should have received it. But also, if you guys give me a quick second, I'm gonna leave this up for about 35 more seconds. For those who can't, oh, you can't see the poll. Okay. I think a few people might not be able to see it. Some may be on their phones or just technical difficulties, but oh, there we go. Got some answers in there. Sweet. Give you about 30 more seconds. Oh yeah, they're all coming in now. Perfect. Good. And one thing to remember, Valerie did go over a lot, but she wasn't able to touch on everything athletics. We can be here for a couple more hours for sure. But please make sure if you get the PowerPoint, utilize the videos. YouTube is always a good tool for everyone. Also, make sure you print out the official Special Olympics athletics track and field rules. Make sure you know that back and forth as well. But I will close the poll here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Sweet. Good deal. All right. So we have a lot of right answers. I love it. The most important answer, did you learn something new? 91% said definitely did. 9% said I knew it, but I will definitely start to expand my knowledge. So super. Thank you all for that. Real fast, I want to share one more thing. This is kind of a sneak peek deal, but Valerie just talked about kind of the honest effort and just quality of competition. So this is one thing that we're kind of working on. You may see it not this year, but in the next year or so. But as far as competitions go, we're looking to get the best out of our athletes, make sure they're in their right events. So one thing I'm looking to do is implement this little beauty that will be a lot prettier the next time you see her, I promise. But in this situation, let's say if you were coming to a summer games, your athlete would be in a category. So if they're supposed to be in the developmental events, they'll be in category 1. If they are into speed running, they would be in the dashes in category 2, and walks, if they're strictly walks, category 3, and so on. You also have, of course, your relays. You can see relays for distance runners and for those who run a dash. So those options are there as well. But also just the parameters in general. If your athlete runs, is in a 25-meter walk and their minimum time is 9 seconds, or if they're, I should say, if they're above faster than 9 seconds, then they should go up to the 50-meter and so on, But this is something you may see in the future. Of course, these times will be changing a little bit. We'll have a few work groups that are going to look through it and see what they think. But this is something that you may see in the future. And this came from just recommendations from coaches, area directors, you name it. Everyone just wants better competition for our athletes. And this may be something that helps tremendously. So this is something we'll be trying out pretty soon. But with that said, I know we have about 7 minutes left. If anyone has any questions, let me check. Valerie, Janet did say you answered her question earlier about the long jump. Ron said, this is very helpful. I only had a couple questions answered. My computer messed up. That's no problem, Lisa. I think everybody, please, if you can send me an email, because as soon as I end this one, all of the chats and everything will go away. So please send me an email if you haven't already. And I will put my email address in there one more time. And I will definitely send you a copy of the PowerPoint. Yep, that is right. But if there's no more questions, let me make sure. If we don't have any more questions, Valerie, thank you so much. Everyone's saying nice job. So you did an amazing job. Thank you. But if y'all have any questions for us, please don't hesitate to reach out, and we will see you all soon. Everyone have a great night.